I thought this was really funny. The same thing that happened to Black Myth Wukong last year is happening now to Expedition 33 this year. You're having these industry events and industry groups that are finding ways to disenfranchise. And yes, I know, isn't it insane? It's like it's so obviously biased and bullshit that I don't know how anybody can put up with this. It's shocking to me, isn't it? Yeah, bullshit. Yes, it's crazy. Look at it. What? I'm assuming that's what this is about, right?
12 months, a Eurogamer reviewer has apparently been haunted by the 5-star review that he gave to Dragon Age The Veilguard.
Jesus.
His words are, "It plagues me." His review called it the best Dragon Age and the best BioWare game he's
I remember reading this, bro. Like, it made me so mad.
ever played.
Should have
5
been
out of
illegal.
5, a perfect score, a masterpiece.
Yep.
1 year later, he admits he doesn't think it's a 5-star game, doesn't think it's BioWare's best, says it's been haunting him for the last 12 months.
I can respect a little bit of accountability. Yes, it's haunting him like a ghost, the fact that he said this game was good. I think that's what you deserve.
Yet the score's still up, still there, still misleading people.
Sure.
But it gets worse. The same week that article dropped, the Grammys announced...
Well, Eurogamer is totally captured by identity politics and progressive values. So they don't really provide reviews anymore. They provide propaganda. And I think that all of the review websites should transition to not aggregating critic scores and elevating them or separating them from user scores. I think all critic scores should just go into the same pile as a user score. Why is it that a critic that got hired for $30 to write an article about why a game is good, why is it that his review gets elevated over somebody who's played it for 200 hours? There's obviously something wrong there.
their best video game soundtrack nominations. Star Wars Outlaws made the list, so did Avatar and Indiana Jones. Guess what didn't? Claire Obscure Expedition 33, one of 2025's highest rated games, arguably game of the year for most. 5 million copies sold, #1 on the Billboard classical chart for 10 weeks. One of the best game soundtracks in a decade. Got nothing, not even a mention. Same week, same industry, same broken machine that decides what you're supposed to play. And if you're still trusting these people, then listen up. Dragon Age The Veilguard scored an 84 critic score on Metacritic.
These people, they give reviews for video games based off of criteria that nobody cares about. They're giving reviews for games based off of their representation of minority groups. They're giving reviews for games based off of the graphics of, you know, the tree bark or the ripples in the water or something like that. And again, what is who cares about a review? Why does anybody give a shit about a review? The reason why reviews matter is because they're meant to inform the customer to make an educated decision with their money. But the problem is that reviews that are co-opted by politics, social perspective, or some other type of ideology are ending up basically overriding the best interest of the consumer. And that's the real problem. It's the perversion and manipulation of a platform for an intentional goal.
Critic. User score of 3.9. Says it all. We all know the reason why by now without even mentioning this thing. The game went through multiple reboots.
Well, the game just wasn't very good. I mean, I played the game a lot. It wasn't very good.
11 years, nearly became a live service game, had to be rescued by a Mass Effect team, sent in to salvage what was left. The development was a mess, the writing was even worse somehow, the game showed it. But sure, 5 stars, BioWare's best game ever, according to this guy. Now 12 months later, he admits, I don't think it's a 5-star game, says that when asked if he'd score it differently now, he said yes, I would. Probably land on 4 stars now.
So you're still retarded. You're just not as retarded. You're saying like, nah, bro, I'm still retard, but like, I'm not like how I was. Like that part of my life is past me.
Probably 4 stars, maybe, but he's not sure. What he is sure about is it's haunted him, plagues him, been thinking about it for 12 months. Poor bloke, 12 months of torment. Still won't change the score though, because apparently Eurogamer's policy is reviews are a snapshot in time. You can't...
I think that's fine if you want to say reviews are a snapshot in time. I don't have a problem with that. There's a lot of games that age badly. Monster Hunter Wilds is a great example of that.
to them, not something they do. And of course they don't, right? It's a convenient policy when your snapshot's bordering on a lie. They could add an editor's note, a correction, something that says they got this wrong, but no.
Well, no, the fact is that Eurogamer is one of the most politicized, one of the most biased, and one of the most unfair websites in terms of giving reviews and giving feedback and like any sort of information about news about games. Like, they are basically a tool for propaganda. They're not a video game review website. They are a vehicle for people to use video games and exploit them for propaganda reasons. That's what it really is.
5-star review sits there still recommending the game, still calling it BioWare's best, still misleading people who stumble across it looking for guidance. So why did he give it 5 stars in the first place? Because the system's designed to produce exactly this result. Publishers fly critics to preview
That's not the reason why. The reason why they gave it such a high rating is because of all the diversity and DEI stuff. That's the reason why. If it didn't have any of that, people would have rated it very low. It's just basically what happens is that critics and reviewers try to take an oppositional perspective from people like me or anybody else who doesn't like, quote, woke things in media. And so what they do is that they give perspectives that are the opposite of what somebody like me would give. And that's really what they do. They just counterbalance it.
Months before release, controlled
Checked all the
environments,
boxes. Yeah,
curated
just check boxes.
slices of the game. These journalists then leave,
and all these people are losing their jobs, and we're going to send them all back to McDonald's. They're all going back to McDonald's. They're all going back to Wendy's. They're all going back to Taco Bell. They're all going to be doing DoorDash. So it's annoying right now that we have to deal with it, but it will end, and it will end a lot sooner than you might imagine.
And say that it's worth the wait, and of course they do, they have to. Then the review codes drop, massive RPGs, days to hit the embargo date, race to publish first, because being first means traffic, and traffic means money. You play the game, you write it, you score it, you move on as quickly as possible. And if the game's got problems that only show up after a dozen hours, or in the real world conditions that we actually experience, they miss them, or they don't have time to think about them, or they just ignore them. Either way, the embargo doesn't wait. The system produced a 5-star review for a game that's now haunting the bloke that wrote it. The system is working exactly as it's intended. He didn't take a bribe, he just did exactly what the machine's designed to make him do, and now he's plagued by it. Just not plagued enough to actually fix it.
IGN does the same thing. They all do it. The reason why these games get good reviews also is there's a degree of expectation in the industry, I think, in order for people to cooperate in a way that's beneficial for everybody involved. And so these companies, they have these reviewers, they treat them well, and then the reviewers are expected to treat the company well. That's what happens.
But if you think that's just another example of games media being terrible at their jobs...
IGN gave Where Wins Me a 6 out of 10. We'll see on Friday.
In the same week, the Grammys announced their 2026 video game soundtrack nominations. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora made the list. So did Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So did Star Wars Outlaws. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. The greatest soundtrack in the last 20 years got nothing. Not even a mention. When was the last time you heard someone mention Avatar's soundtrack? Or Indiana...
No one, because nobody even played the game to know what it sounds like. Nobody cares about these games. They're garbage. They're slop. Nobody plays them. Nobody cares about them. They don't matter.
Jones's or Star Wars Outlaws.
That's it.
Go on any social media right now and try to find anyone talking about those soundtracks. They literally don't exist in the conversation whatsoever. Now search Clair Obscur and you'll find thousands of people calling it one of the best game soundtracks in years. It hit #1 on the Billboard Classical chart. It stayed there for 10 weeks. The game sold 5 million copies, had no massive marketing budget, just a small French studio that made something people actually loved. It's one of 2025's highest rated games, arguably one of the best RPGs of this millennium, a genuine phenomenon. And the Grammys ignored it completely. Meanwhile, massive triple...
Because they're biased. That's the reason why.
The
Expedition 33, it didn't even make it to nomination. That's correct.
Literally nobody is talking about.
Nobody cares about this game. Nobody played the game. Nobody listened to the game. It's just a complete waste of space.
nominations. Even the people who were nominated know it's a robbery. Austin Wintory, the composer nominated for his work on Sword of the Sea, said he was sad at the lack of Expedition 33 and said he'd happily trade places. A nominee.
Yeah, I think it's weird that they would give it to him whenever he didn't even say. Why would you even say this?
He openly saying that the game that got snubbed deserved it more than he did. So
yeah,
why did it happen? It happened for the same reason that Eurogamer gave Veilguard 5 stars. Visibility over...
It's a big club and you're not in it.
Value. Sandfall Interactive is a small studio. No lobbying power, no industry clout, no ad spend at the Grammy voting events.
There you go.
Meanwhile, EA, Ubisoft, Disney, they've got the big budgets, the sponsors, the connections. Awards aren't about what's best, they're about who's loudest. The most visible, who pays, who you know, who you owe. Both of these examples are part of the same broken system. So keep this in mind, because if you're still reading day one reviews from these places, you're being lied to. But most of us worked that out years ago. The trust is gone now and it's not coming back, which makes what's happening with indie games...
I think that's also another very big factor, is that the video game companies that have done this, they've burned the boats. There's never going to be a point where people listen or take seriously the reviews from these people ever again. It's over. And it's been over. So yeah, Eminem curling at Grammys for snubbing 50 Cent. Yeah, it's over. Like all of these companies and all of these different media companies, they are all biased. None of them should be trusted. The only people you should trust are individual YouTube creators, and even them you should take with a massive grain of salt, even including me.
Games even more impressive. When a game like Clair Obscur sells 5 million copies, it wasn't just handed that success. There were no fancy events, no awards considerations, no media access machines churning out hype. It took the hard route. When Silksong launched and hit almost 600,000 concurrent players on...
Think about how ridiculous that is. 600,000 concurrent players on a Metroidvania. That's like 10x the levels of success that like you've ever seen. That's nuts. Could a new one come onto the scene and have potential to be trusted? I think that trust is earned, not given.
Steam, 587,000 to be exact, breaking records, crashing storefronts. It did that based on one thing: trust in Team Cherry. 7 years of waiting, no over-the-top marketing campaigns, no lies, just a studio that delivered the first time and earned the belief and the trust that they'd do it again. That's what makes these successes so insane. They did it without the machine, completely separate of it.
This is something that's happened, is that video games no longer require the massive machine that they used to in order to go to market. You don't need to have a $100 million marketing campaign. You don't need to pay every big streamer to play your game. If you have a good game, the streamers will play it for free. And do you know why? Because it's fun and people want to see it. People want to see popular games that are fun to watch be played, like Megabonk or Ball Pit or Expedition 33. You don't need to do any of this stuff. And because those gatekeeping apparatuses are falling apart, you're seeing these different companies that are basically having their, this is their dying thrashes of trying to stay alive and trying to stay relevant. And I think they're failing completely. They are. They're totally failing. And people can see how desperate and pathetic it is.
Just handed a free pass. Just quality and honesty. That's all that matters, and the contrast couldn't be clearer. But here's the uncomfortable bit. The system hasn't changed, and it likely never will, because that would mean admitting they've been misleading us for decades. Eurogamer's 5-star review is still up, and that won't...
It will change. The companies will go out of business. They will go out of business. These companies, these games journalism companies actually should be considered mathematics or physics companies, because they've managed to take their amount of credibility, which is 0, and they've managed to cut 0 in half. You thought it was impossible. Polygon, Kotaku managed to do it.
Change. The Grammys still gave nominations to games nobody's talking about. Nothing's different on their end. What's different is us. We've stopped believing them, and slowly that's starting to matter more.
Yeah, the way that you stop this is that you just put a bunch of pressure on them. You put a bunch of pressure on them, you shit on them publicly for doing it, and I'm not saying attack or harass them, but attack their arguments, attack what they're doing, and attack it directly and intentionally. That's what you do. And eventually, it will go away.
more than an 8 out of 10 IGN review score ever did. Eurogamer's reviewer backtracking is something, I suppose. At least he's honest about getting it wrong.
Yeah,
that's more than most will ever admit.
Good
but
for
the
him.
score is still up. The review's still misleading people, and Eurogamer's policy means it will stay that way forever. So
that's totally fine. The problem isn't that
honesty really worth? Precisely zero. The system still rewards being a good boy. The awards still reward their industry friends. Critics still chase access over honesty. The Grammys still chase sponsors. We can't.
This video is really good. I like this. I totally agree with everything he's saying. I don't even need to add anything.
Fix that, but we can stop listening to it. Stop clicking their day one reviews. Stop reading their AI generated tip guides. Stop watching award ceremonies.
No, if it was AI generated, it would be better.
Ceremonies that nominate Star Wars Outlaws and ignore the games people actually loved. They don't deserve your attention, they don't represent us, they've spent years proving they don't care. Support the developers who are honest with you, the ones who deliver what they promise, the independent voices who don't need access or awards to tell you the truth. People like me, hit subscribe. It's up to us to decide what's real and what's just smoke and mirrors design.
Well, it's actually not up to any individual creator. The only person who it's truly up to is the individual and the consumer. Because the customer is always right, the consumer is always right. They are the ones that have all the power. They are the ones that everybody will listen to, and it will matter what they say. So really, if you're not listening to them, you're going to fail. And if you are listening to them, you're going to succeed on a massive level. And that's really the main difference. And that's the one thing that people don't understand, is that all you really need to do is just listen to your customers and then build something for them. Look at what Steam did.
To keep share prices as high as possible. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help me out so much. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.
I saw one of this guy's videos the other day, and I guess this one also got recommended to me. I think it's very clear that there's a tremendous amount of interplay that's going on that is not in the best interest of you, the customer. It's not in the best interest of the actual player. And this is industry interplay, industry incest that is happening at the expense of the customer. And I think it's continuing to get worse because as the well runs dry, these people will consolidate more and more and more and become more and more an extreme. Incest? No, I mean, not in a literal sense, but I think in a metaphorical sense, I think that's very accurate. I do. I think it's extremely accurate. So yeah.